Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. Today's video is all about driving gloves. Nothing adds as much class to driving as a pair of leather driving gloves, and they also keep you warm and give you extra grip on your steering wheel. Today we discuss driving gloves, their history, the quality levels, the different styles, the leathers, and anything else you wanted to know about this wonderful men's accessory. First, let's talk about driving glove history. Obviously, they're very closely tied to the automobile industry. They first appeared in the 1890s, and at that time, driving was rough. There was no power steering, the wheels were either of metal or of wood, there was no cabin and no heating, and so driving gloves were essential to keep your hands clean and to have an actual grip on your steering wheel. Interestingly, the driving glove didn't look like this. Instead, it was a gauntlet style that reached all the way back over your overcoat, and it was made of thick leather, sometimes lined with wool, and you really didn't have any sensitivity in the fingers, but you didn't need it because steering wasn't sophisticated. It remained that way up until about the 1930s, when the style changed dramatically. We got this really tight-fitting glove that was shorter, it had perforation holes so you wouldn't transpire in your hands. It also became a stylish fashion accessory, and so no gentleman motorist would leave the house without his elegant leather driving gloves. If you were able to wear gloves on a regular basis, especially light-colored ones, it was very luxurious because you had to keep them clean, and if you could afford the staff to do that, it was a very high status symbol. Of course, at the time there was no power steering, and having a thin layer of leather gave you that extra grip on the steering wheel. In the following decades, the driving glove lost a bit of its popularity as cars got warmer, and by about the 1960s, they added a grip to steering wheels, so they weren't really necessary anymore. However, stylish folks such as Steve McQueen would always wear his Purcells and driving gloves, and so it helped to keep them popular. Same thing with James Bond, he would wear them, and so they were still part of the mainstream. Throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there was a distinct decline in driving gloves, but with a resurgence in classic style, driving gloves have become very popular again, and maybe the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling wearing them prominently had something to do with it. Today, driving gloves are associated with stylish gentlemen who take driving seriously and want to look the part. You particularly see them with people who are into vintage cars, high-end cars, or race cars. But in fact, you can also wear them if you have your little Fiat 500 or your Saturn car, just to keep your hands warm. And think about it. If it's hot in the summer and your steering wheel is blazing hot, a pair of driving gloves protects you from the heat. Also, every modern car still have the glove box or glove compartment, and even though most people don't carry the gloves in there anymore, it's a clear indication that at one point in time it was essential to have a pair of driving gloves. Now that you know the history, let's discuss the difference between a regular pair of gloves and a pair of driving gloves. First of all, driving gloves are unlined versus most regular gloves are lined. The reason is, with a thinner leather, you have more control and sensitivity, and you feel everything on your steering wheel. An insulating layer, such as cashmere or alpaca, also moves around, and so it's warmer, but you really feel further away from the steering wheel, and that's why every driving glove is unlined. Now, at Fort Belvedere, we also offer unlined gloves for the spring and summer, so what's the difference to those gloves? Well, you want a grippy, soft leather. Of course, our regular gloves are also really soft, but here we have a suede finish, which is not as grippy as this lamb Napa finish. We did a bit of testing, and we only get our lamb skins from Spain, Ethiopia, or South Africa because they're the softest, and it has to be very comfortable, but also have the right amount of grip on your steering wheel while not sticking to it. Apart from lamb Napa gloves, hair sheep is another good leather for driving gloves. Deerskin can be good if it's thin enough. And then there is peccary. Personally, I love peccary. It's the best leather, it's the softest, and it's the most durable. However, by default, it's rather thick. So unless you can split the leather down and get a thin peccary glove, I much prefer a lamb Napa glove because it's about half as thin, and therefore you get a better feeling and sensitivity on your steering wheel. The other difference is ventilation holes. Traditionally, when you race with your car, your hands are much more likely to perspire, and the hole perforation helps to keep your hand climate normal so you don't have to sweat and you have that constant grip throughout the race or your drive. So we decided not to just add holes at the fingers, but also at the back, which is hand woven, and it doesn't just look nice because it has this arrow shape, which is very dynamic, but there are also little hole perforations so your hand stays cool. Most importantly, you have a very short wrist, and while most gloves reach past it because they're winter gloves and they're supposed to keep you warm, driving gloves with the primary purpose to give you grip are supposed to be comfortable however you hold your hand and not impede you or have you overheat. So now, what exactly is the difference between driving gloves and racing gloves? These ones are made out of leather, they give you grip, they keep you warm, and they look extremely stylish. Racing gloves, on the other hand, are meant to really perform and protect you from eventual fires and that kind of stuff. So what are the different kind of styles of driving gloves? First of all, you can have machine sewn gloves. And you can see here it's fine stitching, and while they look quite elegant, the problem is that you have the seams on the inside. And while you just walk, it's not very uncomfortable, but on a steering wheel, it's definitely less comfortable than having them hand sewn, which is the other option. You can see the seams here on the outside, and so they're much more comfortable when you drive. If you live in a warmer climate, you want to consider ones that have the fingertips cut off. So what quality aspects should you look for in driving gloves? As I said, a right, grippy, soft leather is important, and so are seams that are on the outside. On top of that, I like to have an adjustable snap button that is not a Velcro, because the Velcro sometimes comes off and it's just a cheaper feeling. Personally, when I have a vintage car or a high-end car, I want a high-end glove, and so I go with a snap button that's adjustable. The next quality hallmark I pay attention to are the knuckle holes. For some strange reason, driving gloves have these knuckle holes, and probably the goal was to have a better ventilation. Now I find that these 4 holes never actually properly align with my knuckles, and so it's actually less comfortable, and it can sometimes even chafe my skin. Therefore, at Fort Belvedere, we decided to skip those knuckle holes and go with a woven pattern in the same soft Napa leather, so you don't feel uncomfortable, but you still get the ventilation effect. If you like the look of knuckle holes, definitely try the pair on, because they can be quite uncomfortable because there are usually seams around it. In terms of driving glove colors, it's really up to you what you want to have. Some people like to match it to the interior of their cars, others like it contrasting and bold, and at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. So overall, driving gloves may not be necessary for the everyday person, but they are beneficial for everybody, no matter if you drive a luxury car or just an entry-level car. They keep your hands warm or protected from the heat, they give you extra grip, and they're enormously stylish. Best of all, you can even wear them when you're not driving, because it's a very stylish accessory and it's perfect for spring, summer, or warmer climates to wear it instead of an unlined glove. If you partake in races, if you like vintage cars, or if you're a member of a concours d'élégance, a driving glove is absolutely essential, and you should actually invest in a number of them. If you're interested in quality driving gloves for stylish men, please head over to our shop here, where we have a selection of Fort Belvedere driving gloves. All of Fort Belvedere gloves are hand sewn in Hungary by glove specialists, and the leather is extremely soft and comes from Italian lamb Napa tanners that have a long history in it, and they know exactly what they do. So it's durable, soft, and comfortable. If you enjoyed this video, please sign up for a free newsletter so these videos come right to your inbox. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and even hit that little bell so you get a push notification to your device whenever we have a new video.